So today I'm going to be comparing Xbox Series X versus PlayStation 5 Pro specs. And you're probably going to be surprised with the results of that comparison. Let's look into this. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So there's quite a lot of talk about PlayStation 5 Pro specs right now, but most people compare PlayStation 5 Pro specs against PlayStation 5 specs, right? So we know same amount of memory, maybe a little bit more available for developers. There's hardly any boost in terms of CPU clock, just by 10%. Also, there's a memory bandwidth increase by 28%, I think, and big CPU improvement. I mean, people talk about teraflops, but in reality, we're looking at around like 40–50% boost in terms of rendering performance. Digital Foundry actually confirmed that too. And today's comparison, basing off of the information that Digital Foundry actually got their hands on, right? So, so we know what to expect of PlayStation 5 Pro a little bit now. There's some also extra features. Digital Foundry also confirmed that PlayStation 5 Pro will come with like extended instruction support for machine learning, like Int 8. Xbox Series S and X had that since 2020. So there's an interesting thing that's going on with this console, because yes, it will be way more powerful than Xbox Series X, but in reality, how much more powerful will it be, right? And that's what this video is going to be all about. So I prepared this nice little table for you guys, and like I said, this information is based off of Digital Foundry information. So you can see a comparison between PlayStation 5 Pro specs and Xbox Series X specs. Now, obviously, most of this stuff when it comes to PlayStation 5 Pro still needs to be officially confirmed, but the Digital Foundry says that this is off of the official documentation, that developers got from Sony. Now, certain things still may change, like clock speeds may change or whatever, like small things, because, the console is not launching until like, late this year. So certain things may change a little bit, but I don't think I don't think there's going to be any drastic changes. So let's start with CPU, okay? So first off, we are looking at pretty much the same CPU that PlayStation 5 Pro has, and it's pretty much this similar CPU that Xbox Series S and X comes with. When it comes to, 8 core, 16 threads, Zen 2 based, no changes there. Now, clock speeds wise, PlayStation 5 Pro will come with like a special mode that will take a little bit of power from the GPU, but we'll be able to run at 3.8 gigahertz, while Xbox Series X comes with 3.8 gigahertz clock speeds out of the box. But this is for single-threaded computation, right? When it comes to simultaneous multi-threading, it's 3.6. So as you can see, Xbox Series X sort of comes with like two different modes. So when it comes to CPU, there's actually not much of a difference. I would even say that the actual simultaneous multi-threading mode is kind of similar. When it comes to both PlayStation 5, I mean, like, there's hardly any difference. You can see 3.5/3.85 versus 3.6/3.8. 8, right? Although on PlayStation 5 both modes are multi-threaded, right? I mean, as far as I know, right? So but still not much of a difference really. So you know, PlayStation 5 Pro will not really get won't get any massive boost in terms of performance in games that are CPU limited, unfortunately, which is a shame. And that's the only thing I'm really salty about when it comes to PlayStation 5 Pro specs, right? That they haven't really improved on that. Now, apparently there's a reason behind that, because all these specs kind of suggest, and Digital Foundry didn't confirm that just yet, but it suggests that PlayStation 5 Pro CPU and GPU, I mean the SoC, may still be produced on 6nm process. And that may have an interesting ramifications, but I don't really want to talk about that before that gets confirmed, because yeah, I think it's just a little bit too early. But the fact that they haven't really raised clock speeds actually do kind of suggest that they haven't really went to any of these like smaller node, which would be way more beneficial. But I mean, it is what it is. It's probably cost more, and you know, PlayStation 5 Pro will, you know, it still needs to cost not a lot. I mean, it will be more it will be more expensive, that's for sure. But you know, they still have to keep it on a certain budget. GPU wise, this is the biggest upgrade you will see on PlayStation 5 Pro. 60 compute units versus 52 compute units on Xbox Series X. Now the big difference is that Xbox Series X is a RDNA 2 based GPU, while PlayStation 5 Pro, apparently it's going to be a combination of all kinds of things, because it still needs to, I mean, it's probably going to be RDNA 3. That's what Digital Foundry kind of suggests. But there's also rumors that the ray tracing engines are going to be implemented from RDNA 4 apparently, right? But this is still a rumor, we don't really know. But when it comes to like specs, you know, 60 compute units versus 52 compute units, and also another, like, you know, a line below, you see the clock speeds. You've got 2.18 versus 1.825 gigahertz, right? So you know, Xbox Series X is actually clocked much lower when it comes to clock speeds, and that will translate to teraflops. By the way, don't pay too much attention to 33 teraflops because Digital Foundry did, well, like I said, this is still not like official information from Sony, but Digital Foundry also were saying that we're talking about like dual issue kind of shaders on in the RDNA 3 and PlayStation 5 Pro. So they did double the number of you know, shaders, but without improving the rest of the GPU, right? So, you know, I mean, they did improve the, you know, number of compute units, so you will get way more power out of that. But you know, that's actually a better, you know, number of compute units in this particular architecture is actually better indicator of the actual power and, you know, capability, plus clock speeds, of course, rather than just number of teraflops, right? So, you know, basically when it comes to like the older nomenclature, I guess that would translate to like 16 teraflops, right? So PlayStation 5 Pro will still be more powerful, right, and more capable, but it's not like 3 times more power than PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series, or 12.5 times the teraflops than Xbox Series X. I mean teraflops, yes, but that doesn't translate to the actual power, to the actual capability, right? I mean, even the documentation that developers got from Sony talks about 45-50% improvement, right? So I mean, you know, teraflops were not the best indicator of the actual power and capability. Even, you know, early this generation, we've learned that hard time big time, you know, with Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. But now it's just washy-washy right now, really, right? It doesn't tell you anything about it, because, you know, it is what it is. Now, memory-wise, GDDR6 memory. Okay, so one last thing. So really, when it comes to GPU, realistically speaking, when it comes to just raw performance, we are looking at around 30% more capable, more powerful GPU on PlayStation 5 Pro. So it's not like a massive difference, right? I mean, you know, it's 45% more powerful than PlayStation 5 Pro GPU and around 30% more powerful than Xbox Series X. So it's not really that massive of a difference, to be honest with you, right? Also, while we're still on the GPU side of things, they did add, like I said, machine learning capabilities, and Xbox Series X do have that too, right? I mean, you know, these machine learning capabilities are not as, you know, are not as performant as on PlayStation 5 Pro, obviously, but it's still there. And same goes for ray tracing. They did add these, apparently, these ray tracing engines from RDNA 4, and the ray tracing is going to be 2-3 times faster, but ray tracing, not overall GPU performance, right? So we're talking about like one aspect of the GPU. So that will help a lot in games that uses ray tracing. So, you know, I think that was the documentation that was talking about, like, you know, PlayStation 5 Pro being capable of running games with ray tracing at 1080p and 60 frames per second, right? But still, that will also depend on the CPU, because better ray tracing more ray tracing calculations will require more CPU. Also processes and cycles to be used. So, you know, it's like as always with these games, it will all depend on the game, right? I mean, but, you know, GPU heavy games will run much better on PlayStation 5 Pro, that's for sure, right? And like, there's no debate about it, right? And really, when you look at PlayStation 5 Pro, PlayStation 5 Pro is all about GPU power, right? I mean, all these other improvements, like, you know, memory bandwidth, it's just to help to push more, I guess, pixels and that kind of stuff. Now, memory availability, it's actually, it's kind of, well, Xbox, PlayStation 5 Pro has 13.7, Xbox Series X, I think 12.5 or maybe 13. You know, there's actually, you know, I couldn't really find like a proper information, so I just stuck with 12.5. But I've seen, because there were also, because 12.5 gigabytes on Xbox Series X, I think that was the initial allocation. But I think, like, you know, with time they did kind of shrunk the OS. So I think now both Xbox Series S and X have more, I mean, developers have more of that memory available for games, right? So it may be 13 probably on Xbox Series X right now. But that's actually not much of a difference anyway. Memory interface and bandwidth, still 256-bit bus on both consoles. However, you know, Xbox Series X comes with these like two. It's not a split memory, as people say. It's just bandwidth is different for different kind of banks of memory, but it's still the same memory. So Xbox Series X comes with 560 gigabytes memory bandwidth when it comes to the GPU tasks, and 6 gigabytes is for more like CPU and sound and everything, right? Kind of tasks. and PlayStation 5 Pro improved the memory bandwidth, and we're looking at 576 gigabytes all across the board, right? So it's easier to use than on Xbox, because on Xbox not you, but developer has to be careful where they allocate the GPU tasks, right? So they have to be more wary of that. So yeah, guys, that's the specs. When it comes to SSD speeds and everything, that doesn't change. That didn't change at all, apparently. Like I said, PlayStation 5 Pro comes with these like new features, improved RT engines, and machine learning support. It's not a dedicated hardware either. It's just like with Xbox Series X. It's just improved instructions for better use of these int8 calculations. So that's what it's all about, really. So, when it comes to CPU, hardly any boost, really. Like, there's hardly any difference when it comes to these two consoles. Memory wise, very similar to, and the only difference really is the GPU power and ray tracing capabilities for the most part. So when it comes to Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 Pro versions of these games, you will see a difference, of course, but for the most part, probably in resolution. And in games that require, that were GPU bound, you may see a slightly better performance in these games too. But I'm actually very curious because, that 576 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, I'm not sure if that's enough to actually take a full advantage of these teraflops, really, right? But it's actually funny that people were kind of complaining about all these teraflops, and they were like, oh, Xbox Series X have these teraflops and they do nothing. So now imagine what all these teraflops going to be doing on PlayStation 5 Pro with that CPU and still limited memory bandwidth. So anyway, but at the same time, PlayStation 5 Pro will have a better graphics, at least in terms of like ray tracing, will have higher resolution, that's for sure, and especially that PlayStation 5 Pro will utilize that new Sony's upscaling technique, right? Apparently it's going to be using machine learning, but in a different way than NVIDIA does it. So, we'll see how. I'm actually very curious of that technology, to be honest with you, because, I remember like checkerboarding on PlayStation 5 Pro, people were laughing at it. And then, some developers actually did use it on other consoles too. So who knows? Maybe they will. I'm not saying that Microsoft will use the same, but, it's actually that's a good question. Like, what's going on with machine learning based upscaling on Xbox, right? It's been like 3.5 years now and still nothing, right? So I don't know, guys, I'm actually critical of PlayStation Pro a little bit here when it comes to CPU power, but Xbox still has a lot of untapped potential, and looks like Microsoft is not really doing its best job, I guess, incentivizing developers to use that power and features and everything, right? Which is kind of shame, but it is what it is, guys. So that's the specs, that's the comparison. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it. I'm sure there's going to be a very interesting conversation in the comments below. So I can't wait to read all your comments there. And so let me know what you think about it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.